We are live. So let me begin by saying welcome. Hello and welcome. I'm Patricia Patton, founder of the Cannabis Business Alliance, and I certainly want to welcome all of you. You're all pioneers in this industry, representing really the crux of the cannabis and the health and wellness segment of what is transpiring. We hear a lot of conversation about licenses, but in truth, we're like the picks and shovels from the gold rush. And so in that respect, I honor you as pioneers. The main thing today is I would like to have just share some of your experiences, because we really are the lived research that many people are writing about at this point in time about how the industry is developing. And so I suspect that we will have some actionable insights as a result of our conversation. So let's begin simply by you introducing yourself and telling us the name of your business. Shall we begin? Actually, Dr. Knox, you're at the top of my screen, so we begin with Dr. Janice.
Okay, good morning, and ladies, welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm coming to you out of the Portland, Oregon area. I spent most of my career being a board certified anesthesiologist, better than 30 years. So one thing I knew, and that was physiology and pharmacology. I am the mother of two other doctors and the wife of another doctor, and we're known as the Knox Docs. We have Pivotal EDU, which is our education platform. We have Pivotal Labs, where we create formulations and products. We have also Pivotal Tech, where we're creating our own, what we call intelligent health record, to address the needs of what we call ourselves endocannabinologists. And we're endocannabinologists because we believe in the science and the physiology first. And that's something I learned going through this whole cannabis space, how important to understand that physiology is. And it doesn't really matter where you are on the supply chain from seed to sale. It really is important to understand that physiology. So we're always going to start with the function and dysfunction of the physiology, throwing in with a little bit of history. But our main goal is to make sure that people of color have a chance in this space, and not just cannabis, but creating all kinds of jobs and services and community. All of that comes from really understanding what we learned from cannabis. So I am one of the Knox Docs, and I'm pleased to be on this panel with all you ladies, and I'm done talking.
Thank you. I'm going to move over to Shirali, who's at the top right on my screen.
Thank you, Patricia, and good afternoon, everybody. Honored to be here with a great group of ladies and also to meet the matriarch of the Knox families. Been doing amazing work and following you. So my name is Shirali Patel. I'm based in New Jersey. I am an attorney by trade. I have recently started my own law firm, Blaze Law Firm, where I represent about 4% of the total wins so far in New Jersey of conditional licenses. I also am the founder of an educational company called Blaze Responsibly, where I just break down really what's going on in the legalized industry so that anybody can understand the evolving regulations and just the nuances when it comes to legalization, and to provide education and content so that everybody has an opportunity to be an informed individual and make responsible decisions for themselves. So excited to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna toggle over to Amy Chin. I'm just double checking as you see me distracted to make sure that we are showing up as we should. I see that Ruth came in. Amy, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Also very honored to be here. I am the founder of Calm Better Days. I am a cannabis coach, and I help people who are new to plant medicine understand how to consume, to harness all the benefits of the plant and offer customized treatments. I carry a curated selection of CBD. Usually I focus on small farmed, women-owned, and BIPOC-owned brands. And just want to preface that I became a cannabis coach because it helped me a lot with my anxiety and depression. So I want to help others.
Thank you, Amy. Jacqueline, you want to unmute yourself and share?
Hello, everyone. I'm dialing in from Summit, so I hope the noise is okay because I've found a nice spot here in the almost sun. So I'm the Chief Growth Officer of Commons, also a partner at Highlands Venture Partners, which both of those ventures are with Tahira Ramatula, who you may know from the cannabis industry. I bring up both because the mission for us is creating for we really deserve opportunities within the cannabis industry and often underrepresented. So Commons, which Patricia is deeply involved with and has been a great addition to what we call the Commons family, is a peer-to-peer CBD or natural wellness brand. So peer-to-peer, think Avon. Avon sort of set out originally on a mission to create opportunities for women back before they could vote. We at Commons are really on a mission to disrupt some of the challenges, starting with CBD around access and trust. So given the floodgates of CBD brands that entered the space post the Farm Bill, seeing a lot of confusion around for consumers as well as patients and what to consume, where to consume, who to trust, what is helping people. The idea of having a distribution model where your friend is telling you, your family member is telling you, someone who you trust is sharing the benefits of what we all on this call know to be considerably impactful products. We start with CBD because of obviously the regulatory parameters, but really expanding into other cannabinoids and then plant-based medicine. And the other major benefit of the peer-to-peer model is creating opportunities for people to participate in the industry. So you can come and become an ambassador with Commons and actually utilize the platform to build your own business, whatever that means. If it means building a team, having other people come in and work with Commons products, you have the opportunity to develop sort of financial benefits, health benefits, mental benefits. So really excited to be talking to this amazing group of women today. So Patricia, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Sarah, coming from Puerto Rico, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you very much, Patricia, for including me, because I'm really the only person on this call who's not really in the industry. I don't have an ancillary business. What I do is I'm a journalist. So I started writing about cannabis. Well, first of all, I should say I didn't even start consuming cannabis until I was 49 years old. So I grew up came of age in the 70s and in the 80s, and was raised by parents who believed that, cannabis was a gateway drug, and they just forbade me from consuming it. And I believed what they told me. I believed the narrative. Fast forward, I had an accident. I fell in the bathtub and I fractured my back. I was 18 years old, and doctors put me on Vicodin. I stayed on Vicodin for 32 years and believed that was the way to deal with my back, and I didn't end up getting back surgery for a variety of reasons. So then fast forward again, and I'm living in Puerto Rico. I'm married at this point. I've done the corporate thing for 25 years, and my husband and I moved to a farm in Puerto Rico, and my doctor, who's a very like a real country doc, said to me, look, Puerto Rico is about to legalize cannabis for medicinal use. I want you to get your card because I want you off the Vicodin. It's not doing your liver any good. It's not really helping you. And I told her, what do you mean? It's a gateway drug. It's addictive. It's all these things. And she gave me literature. And I'm also at this point, I'm writing a lot about addiction for a client of mine. And I started doing research of my own and realizing at that point, NIH had started putting a lot of funding into research into cannabis for epilepsy, Parkinson's, and all these other conditions. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I mean, NIH is putting money into studies. This is great. So I allowed my doctor to kind of convince me to get my card. I got my card and immediately I started feeling better. I was using it initially for pain. And then I realized it cleared up my anxiety. It cleared up my asthma. It made my whole world just different. And I didn't have the side effects that I was having with Vicodin. I could get off bunches of meds. So I was a person who had been on meds previously. And so I feeling really, really, really good for the first time in decades, I started writing about it. I started writing about the medicinal benefits and using studies from NIH and talking with cannabis doctors and nurses and really understanding how it can benefit, how the cannabinoid system works with our own cannabinoid system. And it was truly fascinating. Really, really, really fascinating. Like I started understanding why everybody's talking about the benefits of cannabis. Soon I became what I like to call myself as the medical cannabis evangelist. I would literally talk to everybody I knew. Did you know that you can get rid of your migraines using cannabis? And did you know you can get off your arthritis medicine using cannabis? I mean, I literally was like carrying the message to everybody I knew. And so I got a base writing about plant medicine. I feel really confident about where I am with my knowledge of plant medicine. And somebody introduced me to the idea of writing about social equity. And that's really where I've been with cannabis ever since. I still know a lot I still write about the medicinal benefits, and I still write about pioneering people. I just finished ghostwriting a book about the youngest African-American male to own a dispensary in the US. I've just finished that book. We're in the editing process now. It's opened doors for new ghostwriting projects. I'm really, really thrilled with the way that my career is going as far as the cannabis industry is concerned. And I feel like just cannabis in general is just, I mean, it's healing, it's physically, it's emotionally healing. It's great. And I want to continue touting the benefits, but I also feel very called to talk about the social equity aspects of it, because I've realized through my association with cannabis, how I've always known how screwed over the Black and brown communities are with respect to cannabis. I've always known that because I knew plenty of people who growing up who were arrested and jailed because of it. But when I started to see what's unfolding before my eyes with as far as legalization and social equity and the lack thereof in most of the states, I feel still very compelled to continue writing about the social equity aspects of it, and having people understand how important it is to institute social equity policies into each state's legalization of the plant. And that's pretty much where I am. And I just have to tell you, I feel really honored because I am the only person on this call who's not in the industry. I write about the industry, and through my association with the industry, I've met some amazing people. Patricia is someone I've regarded highly. I mean, for her intelligence, her outspokenness, her advocacy. You're like, you're really, I mean, really, and even to include me on the call, I'm completely humbled, because I mean, I know each of you.
Ideas. You're going to get some new ideas from listening to these guys talk about, why the ancillary segment of the cannabis and health and wellness industry is so important, because the focus today, as a peer-to-peer alliance of businesses, the idea was to try and identify what beyond money do we need to succeed, to scale, to be more, to thrive in a way that we intentionally created these opportunities for. So the floor is open to that, anyone?
Yeah.
I here's an example,
Okay.
of something beyond money. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Today I got an actual contract to get an intern from a real university. this is not the Apple of the world. Like, do you realize how hard it is for, a B corporation or a sole proprietor or whatever? You have the difficulty of operating a remote business that doesn't have a street address.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of things to keep you from getting the help you need. So that's one example of something beyond money that prevents you from moving your business forward, like help.
Let me frame something, Pat. Let me go frame something for everyone here. As an endocrinologist, what I learned is to look beyond cannabis. So like you, I don't consider myself in the cannabis space. I don't, because we've never really had to deal with the plant or anything along those lines. What we have come to see that's really important is, what is the overall picture that's been presented because we took the time to learn about cannabis. I'm also part of CHEM and something called ACHEM that have what we call 4 very important pillars. And those pillars are social equity. And our social equity is a term that I sort of eschew now, because it's been used almost like affirmative action to, as it's directed to people of color, to minorities, right? So, but the pillars of CHEM is health equity, economic equity, environmental equity, and medical equity. And you're not really healthy until all those things are being looked at. Now, I can make an example. For example, in medicine, we have physiology, we have endocrinology, we have neurology. All those things have been isolated, siloed into little corners, and none of them talk, right? None of them talk to each other. That's a disruption that's going to occur because we understand cannabis is about the blending of all those things working together in junction. So when we're talking about health equity, we're talking about those 4 pillars: social, environmental, economic, and medical. And when you look at each of those pillars, then you begin to see what Pat is talking about. What are the opportunities in all these various pillars that we learned about because we understood, the entourage effect that we learned from cannabis in the endocannabinoid system. And I will also say that now we doctors Knox we look beyond the endocannabinoid system into something we call the endocannabinoid ohm, because it better explains all the various other botanicals and why they work, right? You talk about the dopamine system, the serotonin system. Those receptors are not part of the ECS. Instead, the ECS is a part of this bigger system that encloses all of those things. So we can explain why the psychedelics work. We can explain why conventional medicines work or don't work, why Native American medicine or African medicine or Chinese medicine, because we understand the entourage and the bigger picture. But all that does is set the sky as the limit for opportunities for everyone, including these oppressed societies, right? There's jobs everywhere. So we need to teach and educate our people to look beyond what I call the tree and see what the forest is presenting to us. We're lost with the tree. We're looking at cannabis. We need to get beyond that. There is a whole forest of opportunities if we understand really what health equity means, right? Really, what does that mean? And social equity is just one part of that. And we need to address all of those things. So I was trying to set the stage for what you're asking, Pat.
Well, no, you're my girl. So that was excellent.
Patricia, if I can, Dr. Knox, because you brought up something that usually we don't talk about, and that's the bigger picture, right? And so for me, my background, South Asian in India, our whole culture is built on Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is, it's the way of life. These are ancient formulas that yes. Cannabis was just a microdose. Like, these formulas exist using other herbs and plant-based medicine for healing our bodies. And all we're doing is just saying, oh, you know what, maybe cannabis works because of the entourage effect. And so let's just put a little bit of this and see if it works. And so it's just a part of what's already been existing. And yes. There's decades of history in different cultures and countries of what our industries have been. So hemp, we were already using hemp for rope and textiles and food and protein. And now it's making a comeback per say, but it's like this has already existed. We're just creating different terminology around it to make it seem like it's this new industry. I don't even like calling it like a new industry. It's been here. We're figuring out how, to reclaim really what's been lost from the civilizations that I think this plant was ripped from, right? Especially how we live right now. And so you mentioned, I'm jumping to social equity, but that phrase is thrown around now so loosely, everything's social equity, everything's going to do. And it's like, what does it even mean? Like to do social equity, and who are we talking about? Because each state is defining it differently. Right. And so it's like, I think like what you said is so great. It's about figuring out what do we want to accomplish in this journey of our life? How do we use our skills and resources to the best of our abilities? And then if cannabis happens to come into the way, that's great, but it's just not the end all be all. It's like we're making it as this brand new commodity, and it really isn't.
Well, I like to say it's the traditional medicine, right? Which is really that they chased away. The man to plant relationship was chased away. What we call conventional is the new stuff. Yeah. So we need to redirect our terminology. Traditional medicine, we're just going back to what's been practiced. Or that old-fashioned doctor who used to make home calls, and treated everybody as individuals, and gave them what they needed, right? Not what the masses or what the studies said 50,000 people did okay. Well, we're really not worried about 50,000 people, right? I want to know how it works for me. I mean, is it going to work for me? And that may be, yes, it may work for me. But
so is that then one of the barriers from the standpoint of talking about products and ideas and using old terminology to try and do that for the masses? Because one of the problems, to my mind, for any business in this space is that we're focused kind of on a curated outcome, So it makes it difficult to think about it as a huge business, because you really do have to deal with it the way that the plant itself is, that it is personalized, Am I on the right track with that, or do you think that?
May I interject? So through my understanding of the plant medicine of cannabis, I've recently started working with a natural healer, and by and large, I've been a pretty healthy individual. I haven't had to go on like statins or, insulin, none of those things. But through working with Natalie, I've understood something that's starting to anger me, to be honest with you. So I walked into the relationship with Natalie with 3 issues. I was plagued with daily headaches, allergies, and gut problems. Since I was little, I've had these problems, and no matter what I do, I eliminate food. I'm a vegetarian now. I've eliminated all these things from my diet, and I was still having gut issues. So she comes to our house where we become very, very tight. She comes to my house every week. We cook together, and she sees how I cook. So she's been observing what I've been cooking, how I've been cooking, what I've been eating, and also the combinations of foods that I've been eating. So after just one day, she had some recommendations which made so much sense. Don't mix gluten with dairy, eat your greens after you've eaten your protein, drink stinging nettles because it'll help with allergies and headaches. She has literally cured my gut, so much so that I wrote an article for a magazine about how much working with Natalie has cured my gut. I no longer have gut issues. I no longer have allergies, and I no longer have headaches. The part that pisses me off about this is that if I were to go to a doctor, the first thing they would do, and no disrespect to you, Dr. Knox, because I don't say this as a doctor, like all doctors are like this. So no disrespect to all doctors. But if I were to go to a doctor, more often than not, I would come home with a prescription. And what I've learned is through talking with Natalie, there are 28,000 medicinal plants throughout the world. And many of them located throughout Asia, South Asia, Africa, South America, so many plants that can help us with things. And she's opened this world of knowledge to me, to understanding how plants work with our bodies. And I go on every night, my husband and I open up our plant medicine book and we just pick a condition and we see how many plants can address those conditions: eczema, rheumatoid arthritis,
So let me ask you something.
cholesterol.
Let me ask you something, Sarah. So in the sense, while you are not plant touching, you write about the industry, are you able to get the information that you research and what you've learned to the mainstream, or are all of your articles going just to an already existing audience? So that's a primary thing, because that kind of gets back to what we're trying to understand, like beyond money. What do you need as a business to thrive? So you say you're not in the business, but you are in the business because you write about the plant.
Okay.
And so my question is, what do you need to be able to get that information to a larger audience? Or are you just talking to an audience that already subscribes to cannabis?
Sure, both. So by and large, most of my articles about cannabis have appeared in cannabis related publications. However, through associations with people like you, Lanisha, other people, I've gotten into like the Village Voice, LA Weekly, and I've talking about cannabis. So definitely mainstream publications. And I'm focusing right now, I'm focusing on more the mainstream publications than I am cannabis publications, because as you say, I don't want to preach to the converted. I don't have I can talk to all of you and tell you about the benefits. And of course you'll nod your heads. The thing that really makes the difference is being able to talk to somebody who's picking up an article in a totally non-cannabis related topic or publication and learn something. And that feels better to me than simply writing about the industry for the industry, because
Exactly.
I've spent a lot of time writing about the tech side of the industry for people who are into the tech side of the industry. So as well as the medicinal benefits. And Dr. Knox, your comment about social equity makes perfect sense to me. It has really become a word that is like a buzzword that's a really inappropriate word, because it really doesn't begin to describe the harm not just done in terms of economics. That's obviously a big one, the economics, the social impact on the community itself that has been devastating. The economic obviously has been devastating. Incarcerating people for selling a plant is devastating. I mean, there should be nobody in jail for selling a plant.
And you're right about that. You're right. You're absolutely right about that. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Let me ask Amy a question, because Amy works directly with individuals in terms of her business. Tell us something about how you work with people, your knowledge space, and any challenges that you are finding in terms of your business model now, in terms of scaling or what have you.
Visibility is definitely challenging. I don't have marketing dollars, so I network within mom groups, women entrepreneur groups, and I'm finding right now I'm doing a lot more mental health panels, and I do that because obviously that's where I come in from my own anxiety and depression. And especially within the AAPI community, because it is mental health and cannabis are both huge stigmas. So to come in and talk about both openly and how it can heal, I'm seeing that there is definitely an interest, and I'm starting to do more of that because I want to create a space for the AAPI community. I think that we don't know how to know what mental health looks like, so we can't address it. And so I want us to start that conversation so they feel they have a place they can go to, and maybe start maybe healing circles and introducing healing modalities that originated in the East, but have been so far lost that it's almost like a reintroduction to them again. Because talk therapy is great, but it's also not accessible for everyone and can really take a long time for some people. So I want them to understand there is alternatives that you can use in conjunction, or maybe just to speed the journey to relief.
So this
I have
idea
something,
about
Amy.
healing circles, explain to me what a healing circle is.
I haven't begun them yet, but basically I want to create healing circles for them to come and maybe learn about different modalities, also talk about what they're feeling, just a safe place for them to talk, because I don't even think there is that space for them. So, and through that, we can learn about different modalities and talk about feelings and how we've been brought up culturally to stuff our feelings down. And we're just meant to be grateful because we were here in America. So it's a lot of unpacking.
Yeah, I love it.
Something here, Patricia, just interject a little bit, just a couple of things. The first thing is that, to me, what would help a lot of businesses is being well educated about not only the cannabis field, but what cannabis has taught us overall, that I think would be very supportive of all businesses, right? If we really do understand the entourage effect, what does that really mean? And yes, we use it in terms of cannabis, but what about our environment? That we can talk about the entourage effect, people's spirituality, going outside and grounding that also leads to health. Once we understand really the science and physiology, we can almost apply it to anything. And I'm listening to what you're saying, Amy. It is so important to start with education, right? And nothing in my mind has taught me that more than what we just spent the last 2 or 3 years going through, and that's COVID. What did we learn from COVID? What did it teach us about our health? Even healthy people got COVID and died. Why? What was going on in our environment, in our food system, in our stressors in our lives that set us up for this infection that killed thousands of people, right? We need to educate everybody, including those who are creating botanicals or creating cannabis. There's so many people in the cannabis space or in that space who know very little about the basics of why cannabis works and why they should or should not use cannabis, or why they should or should not consider psilocybin, because they're so poorly educated, including doctors. Doctors were taught the same thing the rest of folks were taught. This is a bad drug. It's a gateway drug, and they believe that. And no one's behind that more than NIH and FDA are behind whatever we were taught, pharmaceutical companies. So what I'm saying is, once we educate people about what they really need as far as their health, right now the doctors' knocks are creating an immune box, right? And that immune box is to have everybody support their immune systems, so that if the next COVID come around, maybe you might get it, but it's not going to blow you off the planet, right? You're not going to be in an ICU, hopefully. It's those kinds of things, those kinds of lessons we need to learn. What is the underlying lesson here, or the silver cloud in the COVID thing, right? That's how I want people to start thinking about, and then think about how they apply that information to support their businesses and educate their clients so their businesses are sustainable, because you're giving them something that's real, something they can relate to. And you're talking about your GI system. How does cannabinoids fit in the GI system? There's cannabinoids that are specific for any inflammatory bowel disease and or colon cancer, and it's not the usual CBD and THC. It's not. So what are we learning that we can create businesses out of and scale those businesses, have sustainable businesses? It's all about education and understanding what we're doing, right? What are we doing?
Dr. Knox, an extension of what you're saying with education is also knowing the source of where we're getting our information and who's pushing the messaging, because you brought up the FDA. The FDA will approve, syrup that's laced with like 60, 70% added sugar and say, hey, this is FDA approved and you can ingest it. But God forbid, there's a plant out here that can cure epilepsy essentially, or, shrink tumors. That's going to have to wait. That's going to have to wait for federal. That's going to have to wait for clinical. And
20
then
years. Here's a little tidbit for all. I don't know if you guys know this. but Marinol and what's the other, Sesamet came out like mid 80s and FDA approved mid 80s. You know when the endocannabinoid system was discovered? 89, 90. So the FDA approved these synthetic THC molecules. They didn't know how they worked. What does that tell you about the FDA?
Run.
Exactly.
FDA sucks.
So
In a
don't-
word, it just sucks.
Stunning.
Yeah.
I'll say
Jacqueline,
Have you
one
watched
thing I
Dirty?
swear.
Jacqueline, you've been quiet.
I'm waiting for my moment, Patricia. You know me, really quiet. It's all fascinating. It's interesting how I think one of the things that really triggered my deep emotional connection with the movement, if that's what we want to call it, and I met a woman years ago whose mother had died of toxic shock syndrome. And so she had gone on this lifelong journey to discover, you know, she's not a chemist or a scientist, but she was very committed to figuring out how to eliminate these products that don't require FDA approval, but are being inserted like anything else that is governed by the FDA into a female's body. So from there, I sort of evolved into, well, we've got this sudden R&D happening because regulations have allowed it. And to Dr. Knox's point, it's like the every other system's been researched since the 1800s, the endocannabinoid system since late 80s, early 90s. So a long way to go. But with that, and how this sort of leads into the opportunity conversation, is that there is reinvigorated individuals that see this as something that is emerging as we have, yes, it's a plant, and a plant that feeds into a myriad of different verticals that will impact and disrupt things, not just because the plant has been limited, because it's motivating, and it's a new wave of innovation that has been fatigued in other industries as well, if you think about technology purely. So what it's so frustrating to come, and I think to Sarah's point earlier, it's like none of us need to repeat the hypocrisy, the injustices, all these things that are so amplified in the cannabis industry, very evident in other industries too, but really amplified here because it's this like emerging growth. There's a whole race to be involved, and then the usual dynamics play out. And yet you've got this fundamentally this incredibly healing plant, and then stigma to battle against that as well. So it's kind of funny because when I say peer-to-peer model, aka MLM, if you really want to look at what Avon, that structure, which has its own set of issues and stigma attached to it, some warranted, depending on the company that you look at. The reason why we went down this path is because we don't have Dr. Knox can't be duplicated over and over and over again. And she is someone who people will trust. She is a doctor, she's a physician, and she will talk about cannabinoids and recommend them. In the absence of that multiplier effect, we're dedicated to accelerating the education and the access. And the way we can do that is through, right now we have about 260 ambassadors, Patricia, in our field, on our platform. And that's, if you think about those 260 people talking to their friends and family, but we giving them it's the tools, the education, the anecdotes, incredibly important, the testimonies. We face questions often where people give us the list of medications that they're on and say, can I substitute these with CBD or other cannabinoids? And our answer is yes. Like, not yes immediately, and I'm not a doctor, and I certainly wouldn't recommend going cold turkey on a list of medications I don't know anything about. But what we can do is gather data, and we can continue to share individual stories and at least give people the courage to try the same thing. And Patricia, you and I have talked about this. We have some individuals in our community who have really made incredible changes in their lives, whether it's like debilitating illnesses, those who have been prescribed, to Sarah's point, opioids for decades. And my mother, I can speak. She's a psychiatric nurse. She's been a psychiatric nurse for her entire career, which was 50 years. Started the first drug and alcohol clinic in Perth, Australia, in the 70s. Went back to that clinic at the end of her career. Still saw the same patients coming into the clinic, meaning nothing had helped them or changed them. And then we have all this evidence, and I agree with this. It's not just about this one individual plant. Like, we're actually opening up eyes to say, hey, it's like, we get why these things, we understand where the motivations of those who restricted the R&D around these incredibly important plant medicines, or just allowed them to exist freely, is it's so wildly outrageous in the juxtaposition of everything else going on that it is approved. But we all get the dynamics of why. So I think what keeps the motivation for me is how can you contribute and have the most impact, and how can you use whatever your strengths or access points are to open up doors and opportunities for those, I believe, who are not getting the education, not getting spoken to. Brands are advertising to the typical East Coast, West Coast dynamics. What about Middle America? The Black and Brown community, like previously incarcerated. It's those people who we're truly excited to not even give opportunities to, talk to, bring into the conversation, show respect, and then show, opportunity, whether it's business or other, but then keep I think it was to Charlie's point about the trusted source of education too, making sure that what we say is validated, confirmed. Obviously the products have to be of a certain quality, but really ensuring that standard is starting by educating people and giving them the tools and the voice, and learning for their own sake what's their dosage, what's their formula, what's their format, and then helping them sort of share that. And one last thing I'll say is, when we, right now, if we look at CBD specifically, it's not cheap. You're not talking about mass like prices. It is, for some people, it's the most expensive thing in their cupboard. So the value proposition, where if you're making a choice between, your son's shoes or a tincture, and really you got to that prevention, the preventative element, which is preventing injury, preventing illness, take this day work, that type of thing. And Dr. Knox, I know you're with you've been working, I'm sure, with patients for a long time, where you've actually been able to see the duration of usage and the positive outcomes, and I'd say maybe if you were able to do an A/B test, that's where take your soft gels, people, because you may not when you don't get skin, you don't.
I think that's very useful, and it's one of the reasons that I was attracted to the Commons business model, because of the peer-to-peer. It gave you an opportunity to talk to people and to educate them, whether they accept it or not, but just to engage in a conversation where they could make a decision themselves about how they might enter at a lower cost point. It doesn't take it, as Jacqueline was saying, to the masses because of the cost factor, but it reminded me of growing up, and my mother always sold Avon or peanut brittle candy or something, little extra money here and there. There's the possibility of that being the case for certain elements of the population, and those people have their people. So it's another way to move the messaging into the community. I'm looking forward to Dr. Janice's box for immunology, because that's a whole nother conversation that you can have with people about what Jacqueline is talking about, prevention,
Wellness.
wellness, generally speaking. And I think that, Amy, your idea about healing rooms, was that the correct
Healing
terminology?
circles.
Healing circles. I think it's a great idea. And I think we should find somebody to finance that idea for you, you know?
Healing circles, yeah,
Yeah.
fabulous.
Shirali,
Yes.
what are you thinking?
I participated in healing circles actually, because I've so coming from that background where therapy is considered for if you have an issue, it's not like normal in our culture to talk to people, and so I was like, screw this. I got to unlearn all the conditioning that I've been, and I got to heal the ancestral trauma and my inner child trauma, and so I've been going for 2 years now to Reiki, which is a Japanese form of energy healing. And as part of the Reiki, it's a group of women, powerful. We all come together, and we get our guided. I would say it's a guided meditation session. The healer performs her Reiki, and then afterwards, everybody's bawling. Like things that you've suppressed for so long come out, and you let go and you heal together. And the most powerful thing for me was that it was with a group of women, because I think I was raised, and for so many years I had a guard up, and I felt like maybe I was intimidating and that I wasn't approachable. And that was the last thing that I wanted, because I think everybody wants to love and be loved. And going through these ceremonies or circles with these women made me realize, that I'm not intimidating. I am lovable, and there are women who support me. And just to be in this environment, which is secure, right? Because I think that's why it's called like a healing circle. Like nobody's judging you. You're just sharing, you're releasing, and you're really evolving together. It's very powerful. It's transformed my life. I'm on this journey of just healing now, and I think healing circles are really powerful. And just to incorporate cannabis into it, I can only imagine, because the ceremony was using cacao, which is a shamanic actually tool, and that helps when you warm up the cacao. When you drink it, it's for your heart chakra, and it does a lot to you to release. And so I haven't tried it with cannabis, but I would love to. Amy, if you start doing them, I'm there.
I just want to tell Shirali, that's so beautiful, Shirali, because one of the things that I learned as a physician is how we've isolated systems, right? And we totally got rid of the spiritual aspect of who we are, and how and why that needs to be addressed in dealing with health. I came from a very religious family, very religious, interpreted the Bible literally. I went to UC Berkeley as an undergraduate, where cannabis or weed was a part of the culture, but I never saw the plant. I couldn't have told you what it looked like, smelled like. That was because of my religious training, right? I didn't know anybody who used it even. And I went to Berkeley. My kids still don't believe that, but I never saw that plant. That's how programmed I was. But what I started to understand is questioning the spirituality of everything, right? And I would do an exercise with my patients. I wanted them to shut down their brains, just not think. Tell me if you can just go blank and not think. And nobody could shut their thinking off. They're so programmed. And the other thing I would tell them, I would ask them, where's the very first house you ever lived in? I wanted them to describe that for me, right? And they would invariably describe a house. And I would say, no, your very first house is your body. That's where your spirit lives. So a lot of these people didn't realize they were spiritual beings, and that spiritual aspect of themselves needed to be taken care of, right? You adorn the body, you maintain the body, but that spirit that lived within that housing needed to be stroked. And I love when people tell me about Reiki, meditation, using psilocybin experiences. All of those are letting you deal with that spirituality, which is essential to our overall health. Bring it back. We cannot isolate it from the physical of who we are. We need that. So that was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
The one thing I'll say on the part of, obviously the selling products is controlled by the regulators, but conversation is not. And I think that's one thing that we're sort of focused on CBD now because we have to be, but ultimately it is exactly these points, which is creating a space for people to start talking to people to start asking questions. What are they curious about? And it was fascinating. We were in Wisconsin a few weeks ago we hosted a kind of curious event, and the demographic, I mean, it was from 21 to 75, diversity in gender, race, age, sexuality. We had previously incarcerated individuals, those who were on trial to go back to prison, and which was a really beautiful, like, everyone was equally engaged and wanted to learn. But we were talking about CBD and it's safe people. Just it's such a reminder that the fresh spirit, mind, it's getting in touch with who you are. And everyone's so fear driven. And so that's another piece. When I talk about like innovation, it's innovation into a supply chain and products, formats, different cannabinoids, formulations, etc. But it's also innovation of how we speak with each other and how we allow each other to sort of exist together. And if that's something positive that comes out of this that's what's sort of opening up for people, driven by both cannabis and psychedelics as well. There's a lot of amazing things happening in R&D there. Then I'm along for the ride for sure.
Well, we have 8 minutes, so I'm going to try to tie together some of what we shared, because clearly trying to come up with particular ideas, that's what we were trying to figure out, really, or that was our mission, to try and figure out were there any actionable insights. And I've come up with quite a few from what you've said. The question will be, how do we apply these insights from the comments that people have shared to our business practice in order to grow our business? Amy, you mentioned visibility. Clearly that's a problem for a lot of us, finding a platform where people know what we are doing, or what we believe, or what our business seeks to do. I mean, it's no different if you are the brand or if it's a product like the Commons brand. But we're dealing with big ideas, really. They're sort of like big ideas that you're trying to bring down to bite size so that you can talk to a larger group of people. And then you're looking for platforms kind of to do that with all the things that we have discussed. Anybody have any closing ideas about ways that we might do that in the business sense? Okay, keep it to 2 minutes.
Collaborate.
Collaborate, yes.
Collaborate. So I've got I've done a few such like Let's Sesh, where similar to this, roundtables that bring together mostly women. Couple I've attended, the panels I've been on have included men, but I think that for a variety of reasons, people seem to resonate with the women speaking. So I've tended to do most of the women ones, but what I've discovered is that by having a variety of backgrounds like you've put together today, Dr. Knox and Patricia, the having a variety of backgrounds and opening ourselves up to non-cannabis consumers, non-cannabis people who really are still sort of on the fence, who really don't know. I feel like the only way to combat the combination of big pharma, big industry, the Dow Chemicals, basically, which is why we don't have a hemp industry that much anymore, and the big pharma, why we reach for a cough medicine before we reach for plant medicine. Putting a bunch of us in a room together and literally letting people ask us questions, because what I've found is that when I go door to door, literally, like I talk to people who are friends of mine who want to understand how I use plant medicine. And when I talk to them and I overcome all of their objections, I feel like, and I know that I'm doing good by doing that. And I feel like if I had a variety of women behind me who were also not behind me, next to me, who and I didn't mean that in a sense of like, I I didn't mean behind. I really did mean like in the
We
circle.
didn't think-
Yeah, you know, okay, thank you.
think that.
And feeling like if somebody asks a question, they're not just getting my perspective, they're getting Shirali's perspective, they're getting Amy's perspective, they're getting Dr. Knox, they're getting all of our perspectives, you know, and Jacqueline, we're getting all of our perspectives. And it's sort of, it helps, I think it helps for the person who's on the fence. I mean, I think doing roundtables like this are critical. It's almost like grassroots. We have to do grassroots because
You hear the roosters in your backyard.
you hear the roosters, they're trying to be part of the conversation. So I think more like this sessions where, but being consistent, because what I found is that when I've been on panels like this before, there's this excitement in the beginning and then it wanes after a few sessions.
Well, you have to stay involved as a member.
You have to stay involved as a member,
You have to stay
right?
involved as a member because this is a community. This is an
Yeah.
alliance that we are
It's an
forming,
alliance.
where we are peer to peer, where we're supporting each other, where we're sharing.
Yeah.
You know, we're not in competition. There's enough for all of us, you know, in this
enough.
space. And it's enough for
Absolutely.
all of us, even if we're doing similar things because we're doing it differently. So, I mean, I appreciate that collaboration. Shirali, you have some closing statement.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely agree with what Sarah said and really what every woman has said on this platform so far. And I think collaboration is key and visibility is key. And so taking advantage of opportunities like this to speak, to get your voice heard, getting yourself in the room, no opportunities little, I think, and never quitting. Because when I started this journey, everybody laughed. Nobody thought I was going to do anything in cannabis in 2016, 2015. And I just kept, reaching out to the ACLU, reaching out to organizations like, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help. And then eventually when it came time to go with legalization, I was able to be a part of it because I just kept being persistent. And sometimes it feels like, no one's listening, but eventually if you don't quit, you just keep following your path, you'll get to where you need to be. And I think trusting yourself and your intuition, because I've had people tell me, why would you want to start your own law firm? It's going to be too much work. And then I'm like, why am I letting somebody else dictate my journey and like my trajectory? I could fail on my own terms. And then I'll, so I think always like taking everything with a grain of salt and doing what's best for you. And then also taking advantage of platforms like LinkedIn. I'm going to say something that I probably shouldn't. I consider it to be like white privilege, honestly, because you can network with anybody in the world and just say, hey, I love the work you're doing. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And 9 out of 10 times I've had conversations with people that I never thought I would. And so I think just taking advantage of tools that we have, staying connected, and really women empowerment is huge because I love being around other women and seeing other women succeed. It gives me hope and inspires me. So thank you, Patricia. I'm just blessed to be part of this alliance.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Amy.
Yes, collaboration. And I think sometimes there's so much going on. It's hard to know where I should put my efforts when I want to help and volunteer or help, get a message out.
But we'll help. We'll help.
Okay.
You. We will help you,
Yes. And I do remember an early conversation with Shirali, and I do love the women empowerment, and I remember her telling me, so I do appreciate it. Also being part of this panel too, Patricia. So thank you for putting us together.
It's a pleasure. Jacqueline, you have any closing words? I see you walking the New York streets.
I do. I'm sorry, because everyone froze. I was trying to get back in a good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, again, echoing collaboration. It really is. We all have strengths, experience, expertise, and I think just sharing those, because to be honest, like the barriers are real and the complexities are real. I mean, I've done many things in my career, and I've seen a lot of different industries and companies and business models and all sorts of things. And we are taking, we're here for love, that's for sure, because no one's taking the easy path. So the more, I mean, I'm trained in finance. Here's a really easy example. If someone wants to raise capital, particularly a woman or a person of color, I will drop and give any free advice to anybody. And it's just a skill that I have from my background, and it's something that everyone and I say this when I'm, speaking at events or whatever it is, like, here's my number, call me, because that's a real, it's frightening for a lot of people. And people, people have marketing skills, they have branding skills, they have coaching skills, whatever it is. We've all got something that somebody else could learn from. And so I think just being like, just diligent about being resourceful. And also, because I think the one thing that I find that just warms my heart every day about this industry is that there are some real gems and generosity, and we all know that we've got to hold hands and kind of do this all together. And so really, like, take it, like, the onus is on the individual to be resourceful, and having these conversations, Patricia. And I think like, this is like holistic education, like holistic healing. This is holistic education. So getting diverse skills on conversations like this, Patricia, is.
What happened? Okay, so Dr. Janice,
Very
Dr. Janice,
short.
do you want
Okay,
to?
let me see. Yeah, very short here. My 2 cents worth is stay persistent and accept the fact it's okay to start from ground zero. People of color are starting businesses. The road is tough. The barriers are high. We have to stay confident, supportive of each other, and it's okay to start from ground zero. Let's build our own.
All right. So I want to give a special thank you to Pivotal Education and ACAM, to Calm Better Days, which is Amy's brand, to Boricua Digital, which is Sarah, to Blaze Responsibly, which is Shirali, and to Commons, which is Jacqueline Bennett. You guys have been great. It's like, really, it's been good. So thank you so, so much.
Nice meeting all of you. What a pleasure.
Really nice, really nice meeting.
Very nice meeting you all.
Yeah, likewise.
I've admired
everyone.
all of you from afar for a long time. And I mean, Dr. Knox, I just have to tell you, I've followed some of your work. I think that you are literally, I don't use this word often, but you're brilliant. And I'm honored to make your acquaintance. I really am.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All of us need